Hey y'all, in today's video, I'm attempting these super tiny knotless braids on my very thick hair inspired by the curly strands tutorial. So first, let's get into the tools. I used this thicker rat tail comb to create sections, and then I used this thinner, more defined rat tail comb to create the individual parts with braids, and I opted to use this edge control in each section to start off my braids. Let's go ahead and get right into this because listen, friend, it was a lot. As you guys can see, I'm pretty much done, and on the last section of hair, I opted to go ahead and then turn on the camera because I needed to put all my energy into getting through these braids. Now, what I'm doing here is going in with that smaller rat tail comb, which I showed in the beginning of the video, to create really precise sections. Now, that's when I chose to use this comb. When I created the larger sections to create rows for the braids, I used that thicker rat tail comb. I just find that it worked better for me because my hair is very thick and this thinner comb wasn't working for larger sections, but it is great for really precise parting like I'm doing here. Now, I already have the pattern and section going. One of the tips she gave in her tutorial was to create your sections for your braids, your rows first, which I did the day ahead, and that is a absolute major key to getting really good parts. And then also going in with this smaller, more defined rat tail comb to do parting and spacing when creating these sections before starting each braid was also a great tip from her tutorial, which helped me get much better parts. I feel like these are the best parts I've gotten thus far since trying this style. Now, another thing she recommended doing in her tutorial, which I did on my thick hair, was making sure your hair is blow dried. Now, my blow dryer decided to just die on me in the middle of preparing my hair, so I did the best I could and I just had to say a prayer on it and keep it moving. However, I would have liked to get an even better blow dry. For me, I have very thick hair, so it was a lot to try to tame and get my hair together and prepped. But once I got my section for each braids, I then detangled again since I feel like my hair wasn't as heavily blow dried as I would have liked. Now, another tip in her tutorial was to start off with your natural hair. I'm going in with that Ebon Edge Control Gel at the base of my part. I'm also combing that in, that way it's actually worked in. And then around the hairline, I used this in conjunction with a little eco styler for a really precise look and to make sure my edges were smooth, laid, and that I got up all the hairs in the perimeter of my head into the section. There was no stragglers, outliers, without having to create a lot of tension. I feel like using those two products got me a really nice sleek look and gave my sections a nice definition and shine. I then start braiding my natural hair first. Now, this was one of the suggestions she used in her tutorial, which I found to be effective. But I also made sure to do this only after thoroughly working in the product. And then I found for me, I had to absolutely really be intentional about creating sections and keeping the rest of my hair separate. You'll be surprised how those little stray hairs want to sneak in, and then that can make your parts not look nearly as neat. So I'm taking my time and starting off the braid with my natural hair, and then I'm using very small sections to feed in. Now, I will say there's a lot of people that are probably way better at braiding than myself and that can cut the corner and use a larger section and feed it in and it looks seamless. But for me, since I would consider myself to be a more novice braider, I feel like this is the best looking braid I was able to get because I fed in such small sections. So the tip that she gives in her tutorial to use really small sections is absolutely going to make a difference in how seamless the braid looks. There were no like obvious bumps or anything as I fed in the hair, and I really attribute that to the fact that I used a lot smaller of a section when feeding in the braid and going down the strand of my hair. There was no lumps. It was a lot easier to get a really uniform look to the braids and also have just a really seamless transition when feeding in that hair. Now, I alternated between about 4 strands or so, depending on where the section was, 3 to 4 strands in each braid. In her tutorial, she mentioned that she used 6 little pieces of hair like this, but I do find that my hair might be just a tiny bit thicker than hers, so that might be why I used a few strands less of hair. But essentially, just feed in as many pieces of hair as you feel are needed to get the aesthetic you're going for. So I wanted a uniform, kind of thin, really flat, seamless knotless braid, and I wanted the hair I was feeding in to match the density of my own hair. And because my own hair was pretty thick and I have a good bit of length on my hair, I didn't want it to look super duper thick and lumpy at one point in the braid and then thin out tremendously. So I found that feeding in the amount of hair I did worked well for the ultimate look I'm going for. And then I just continued this process over and over. Now, I must admit, it was not as awful a process as I would have thought. And I will say that has a lot to do with the fact that my hair was already prepped and blow dried before. Even though I, like I said, didn't get the blow dry I wanted, I was able to get it pretty doggone blow dried. I opted to not straighten my hair as she did in the tutorial. If I had tried to do all of that, I don't even think my brain would have been able to compute that much hair. No, it couldn't. If you can do it, kudos to you. I just was like, I can't take on straightening my hair and then putting it in these super small knotless braids, not all at one time. So I just opted to blow dry, which I think cut down on the actual installation time a bit, as well as I did my sectioning the day before. That is huge. Now, by sectioning, I mean creating sections and going around and creating the rows that I was going to need to have really defined clean parts. That took a while. So all in all, I would say this whole process took about 9 hours, but considering in her tutorial she said it took 3 days, I'm going to take that 9 hours and take it to the bank. Now, I will say I feel like I could get even better at this the next time, but for my first attempt, I can already see a huge difference from following her tutorial. These are my results, guys, and I love how the braids turned out. So I definitely feel like her tutorial is great if you want to give it a go. I'll make sure to put it in the info box of this video. And these are my results as well as how the braids turned out, the length and everything. I really love, especially love how lightweight they are. And this is perfect, especially now that it is super hot outside. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.